This episode was recorded on the unceded lands of the Kulin Nation.
Hello, and welcome to POSLink Plus Listen. My name's Jen. In this episode, you will hear a conversation I recently had with Matthew Gallagher, and we chat about his experience as a board member of Living Positive Victoria. So just to recap, in case you didn't know, Living Positive Victoria is a member-based community organisation, and membership's open to all people in Victoria living with HIV, and the work that we do at Living Positive Victoria is overseen by a board of directors who are elected from our membership, and they volunteer their time and their skills to make sure that our organisation stays strong and does all the right things. And so Matthew was a board member with us for 6 years, which is an incredible contribution. So in this interview, he talks about what possessed him to join the board and what kept him coming back for so long. So I hope you enjoy this conversation. Hello, Matthew, and welcome to POSLink Plus Listen. Can I ask you to say hello and introduce yourself?
You can. My name's Matthew. I've been on the Board of LPV for 3 terms now, so this is my final one as treasurer for just about all of that time. I'm an accountant otherwise, work for myself. No pets.
Oh, yay.
Just a boyfriend, but he's probably listening, so we won't.
We'll give him lots of pats.
Yes.
Thank you for that intro, Matthew. So you've come in to talk to us about your experience on the Living Positive Victoria board. But before we get into that, can you just take a minute to explain to our listeners about what the LPV board is, what it does, how it works, just for people who might not be familiar?
So the board is effectively the boss of the organisation. So we sit and look at the strategic, long-term objectives of the organisation. So the board meet once a month. There's president, vice president, secretary, treasurer, and then other directors. Mm-hmm. And so I've been the treasurer for most of my time here. Mm-hmm. Other than meeting once a month and running through, making sure that the organisation is, running smoothly and everything's in order, and keep a high-level check on all of that.
Yep, great. Yeah. So we're going to go back in time, back 6 years ago when you first contemplated becoming a board director. I don't know how much you knew about it, but I'd love to hear from you. Like, when did you first consider becoming a director on the Living Positive Victoria board? What made you decide to nominate? What were you kind of hoping to get out of it?
Yeah. I was a member of Gen Next back in the day, and the president at the time, Adam M., had gently and not so gently encouraged.
Shout out to Adam.
Encouraged me to apply. To be honest, I just about didn't, because I kept thinking, who am I, to sit on a board and run this organisation? So, I was quite worried about it all. I'm absolutely so glad that I did, though, because it's been an incredible experience. The people that I've met and the things that I've learned. That was 6 years ago. So
how did Adam ultimately twist your arm? Or is that for the special episode?
No. So he suggested that I would be a good fit for the board. Mm-hmm. He suggested that they needed an accountant or a treasurer.
Good treasurer is gold.
Yes,
on a board.
And when I still hadn't applied, 2 days from the deadline, he took me out for a coffee and once again encouraged me to apply, which I did. Yeah. And we still almost missed out. If I could have ran out the door of that AGM, I certainly would have.
So the AGM is the annual general meeting where the nominations for new board members, or where the vote occurs if there are vacancies. So did you have to get up and make a a speech in favour of yourself, or
I
how did it all go down?
Yes. And I am maybe no longer an awful public speaker. I probably graduated to just
Yay.
not great. But I had to stand up, and there were three things that I was focused on getting across in my campaign. The speech went basically like this.
Mm-hmm.
Hi, my name's Matthew, number
That's
one.
I love it.
I'm an accountant,
Uh-huh.
and I hear that you're after a treasurer.
Amazing.
Thank you. And I sat down and wished that I could be swallowed up whole.
Did you get a laugh?
No.
Oh no! Where were the people with the humour?
Also didn't get many votes, but that's okay. I was co-opted to begin with, so not fully elected, but that was fine. I still made it onto the board.
Well, that was 6 years ago, and it is interesting and probably pretty relatable to people out there that, you know, sometimes when invited to do something, your first thought is, I couldn't do that. Like, that's not something I'd be able to do. And I mean, that's a journey I imagine you had to kind of work through when you, like, tell us about that first board meeting. Like, you've gone in there and thinking, oh, I've got nothing to contribute, or this isn't for me. How was that for you? Did it take you long to move beyond that, or to find your voice, as it were?
So my plan initially going into it was not to, step on anybody's toes. I didn't think I knew any more than everybody else, and was really conscious about that. So I came in with my first treasurer's report, ready to discuss and sit out, and it was just I'd done some extra research to pop in there, and I had it as a little footnote to the end of this meeting, and I said, great guys, we've beat the budget, we spent less than we had intended to, but I said, but by the way, we probably need to keep saving a bit extra, because this budget says that we're going to go backwards. I think it was $50,000. And I just thought everybody must know this, so this is fine, just as a little fact. But around the table, everybody's jaws dropped, and suddenly, I was called into all these meetings later with the CEO and the finance officer and business manager, and this imposter syndrome that I was feeling was, suddenly washed away, because everyone was looking. Yeah, they were all looking at me like I was, the only person to come in and point all this out. So.
Very possibly saved the day on your first day of school. No, that's amazing. So, Matthew, what was it like learning how to be on a community board? So you said, because you hadn't been on any kind of board at all before. What was it like learning to be on a community board? What was sort of surprising about the experience?
Yeah. So coming from a small business background and being the boss myself, I'm very accustomed to making a decision and then implementing it, and off we go. So it was a steep learning curve to seek so much consensus with everybody, and we had to check everything, and we're dealing with quite a large budget here, so there are a lot of checks and balances and things that need to happen in all of there. So looking at all the strategic longer term focus as well. So we did we've probably done a couple of strategic plans in my time now. So looking at the next 5-year plan for the organization and things like that. So it's a very different timeline and set of circumstances to what I'm usually accustomed to.
It sounds like being accountable to so many more elements, and accountable. You're representing the membership of the organisation. And can you share some highlights from your time on the board? Like any, what are you most proud of?
I certainly can. Yes, there's been a lot of highlights. It's not all work, which is good. So one of the main things that I have particularly learned is speaking about the longer term focus is building on the works of others. So one of my highlights would probably be the Great Victorian Bike Ride that we put together. I was chair of the fundraising working group for a while.
Okay.
And a previous board member had put together this entire proposal on this sporting community. So we sort of took that and went off, and we recruited a team, and we enrolled ourselves in this 320 kilometre 5-night bike ride to raise money for LPV. So we all went off and got sponsors and donations and things, and we raised over $10,000.
Amazing. And then of course there's the non-monetary value of kind of all of the the engagement that you do in talking about that work, and even just being part of that bigger fundraising event and being visibly kind of representing Living Positive Victoria. How was your bum after 320 kilometres in a saddle? Can I ask that? Because that just hurts. That feels really uncomfortable.
It was such a long ride. Particularly there was a point partway through where I honestly thought, what am I doing here?
Okay. Talk us through that moment.
So it was day 3, I think, of the 5, and the morning started with lots of hills, but so much sunshine. And you're in this beautiful Western Victorian countryside. So you're looking out on the side.
Okay,
and,
of course, it was Great Ocean Road. That is kind of hilly. There's some nice flat sections, but up through the Otways and...
Unfortunately, when we got to the flat section, it started sideways raining.
No.
So it was just powering through to get to the end, and the whole time thinking, what on earth am I doing here?
Oh, Matthew, it was a metaphor.
It was.
And nobody knows what for, but good on you. That's epic.
Otherwise, the main other highlight I'd say was just the social aspect of being on the board. That's probably been the most fun side of things. The people that we meet and getting to hang out outside of the board meetings and really build these connections, because that's so important when you're sitting in a room for 3 hours a month to debate all these various topics and things. So
because I was going to ask you, like you did your 2-year stint that was asked very convincingly of you, but then you nominated presumably voluntarily for a second term, and then a third term, and now you have the distinction of achieving the maximum possible duration of service that you're allowed to have, 6 years within this organisation before you start breaking the law, which you're definitely not going to do. But I wanted to ask you, so what was it that kept you coming back? What kept you sort of making that decision to, because it's a volunteer role, this is a lot of your time, your personal time. What kept you deciding to nominate and be a part of this work?
Yeah, so honestly, I guess it was just that I felt valued and certainly needed from the organisation, and it was that sense of giving back and purpose as well, that you don't get when you're sending somebody an invoice at the end of the job. It was just that. And
you talked before about the sort of the new or the different experience of kind of building consensus with a group of people. Can you tell us a bit about what it was like to sort of sit with a really diverse group of people and be working towards consensus?
There were a lot of lively debates over the years.
That's really what I want to hear about.
But one of the things that often surprised me was, because we've had quite a lot of various board members over the years, coming from such a diverse group of people, everybody had their own corner that they would often be advocating for. And so mine was definitely finance. I was always keen to talk about that and push for governance and things like that. But we had people from trans backgrounds and diverse multicultural aspects, and there's been lots of initiatives and things that we've gotten off the ground simply by other people being around the table.
So lots of strong advocacy happening, and to build consensus is something that takes time and takes patience and listening, and it's really gratifying to hear that in amongst that there's also a huge social connection, and kind of there's a community within the board that develops. It sounds like that was a big part of your experience.
Yeah, it was. Yeah,
very cool. What's it been like governing the organisation through difficult times like COVID?
Yeah. Being involved in everybody needing to start working remotely, and even our board meetings had to, move online, and that was very interesting at the start. But there was fortunately not any issue with our funding that a lot of people, other organisations experienced, because we're not heavily donated. Funding wise. Yeah. The other part as well was that being on a board, with a diverse set of people around there, is that you're never alone. Whenever there was a big issue come up, it was never something that just I had to deal with. So it made things a lot easier, and there were a lot of different situations other than COVID that we went through that it was never a problem. Because there were other people to work through with and
share the
burden.
Oh, Matthew, we've had you for so many years, 6 years. We've benefited from your commitment, your mad finance skills, especially around end of financial year, and you're going to be finishing up. I want to ask, what's next for you? What are you going to do with all the spare time that you're about to get back?
So it has been a big time commitment, particularly being the treasurer. That's been the extra aspect to it all. But I've certainly learned being on the board that the high level strategic longer term focus is more where my skill set is perfectly suited to. So I'll take a bit of time off for sure, and then be looking for another organisation to give some more time back to. Very
possibly that organisation might come looking for you. So my last question for you is, do you have any words or advice for people who might be thinking about joining the Living Positive Victoria board, or really indeed the board of any organisation that they're passionate about? What advice would you give?
So the main thing that I noticed when I first started was that I constantly felt like I was an imposter and not good enough to be here, and none of that was true.
No.
I quickly learned. So I've seen it in others as well on the board. They'll come in as nervous as I was, and then seeing them come through and flourish once they find what their corner is, and the confidence to bat for themselves. It's been really rewarding from that side, and it's honestly not as much work as I certainly thought.
Well, you've been here for 6 years, and so we are so grateful for your time, and we for your time today, and also for the time that you've given to us as an organisation, and the way that you've guided us through some really challenging times. So thank you. Thanks for chatting to us out there in Podland, and also thank you on behalf of us for all of your work.
No worries. Thank you.
Did you enjoy this episode of POSLink Plus Listen? You can find more episodes on our website or wherever you get your podcasts. And don't forget to subscribe to stay up to date. For more information, head to lpv.org.au and join us on our social channels.